Welcome to the Polysec Podcast. This is your host, Anthony Lindsay.
And Stephanie Moreno.
We're here with Lexy Thompson, who runs Trybal Performance. All right. So, Steph, you have some questions for her.
Yes. Hello, Lexy.
Hi, Stephanie. Nice to meet you.
You too. So my first question is, I know there are several reasons for projects to fail, but communication seems to be the overwhelming reason for workplace failures. Can you tell us about communication failures in the workplace?
Sure. In the workplace, communication typically fails because the intention for the communication and the actual execution of the communication are incongruent. Mm-hmm. So we end up with misunderstanding, unneeded conflict that arises from that incongruency.
So is it more like getting people like on the same page?
Yeah, on the same page is a really good start, right? Making sure that the message that you're intending on sending is the one that's received. And then there's a construct for healthy communication and creating a safe place for everybody to be able to say what's really happening and existing for them in a manner that's kind, yet focused and accountable.
Well, I like that. The 1-2 punch of professionalism, it seems like.
Yeah, to kind of get people lined up. Like a lot of times, like you'll start a conversation thinking it's going to go one direction, and the other person thinks it is a completely different conversation, and you end up like both confused as to what the result is.
And hostile.
Yeah. That's like the worst.
Yes, there you go. Sounds like you have some experience there.
A little bit. So how can, please tell us, how can companies fix the communication in the workplace? We had the idea of creating a communication bureau to police the communication between colleagues, but ultimately we thought it would be unfeasible. How would you fix the communication in the workplace?
Some of the most effective ways that we've been able to help organizations move that forward, and specifically leaders and their team groups, be them however big or small they are, is to show them a communication construct that we've actually built called How to Talk About It, and how they take all of who they are, the strengths about who they are as a person, and they bring it into the model for communication so that they can create a safe place and a shared meaning and intention for that particular conversation, and show up courageous and always keeping in mind that the communication ultimately shouldn't have a winner or a loser, that ultimately the communication itself is the winner, and that is evidenced by each person being able to witness that they felt seen, heard, and hopefully understood in the process.
That's interesting. So I was a manager at Walgreens for a long time, and that was a common theme where it was like, it really did feel like you were going into battle when you had conversations with some of the employees there. It would be like you would take them into the office to say, hey, this is what I want you to improve. And it was like a fight almost between the two of us. So it felt like there was a piece missing. Yeah,
often the piece is a self-awareness piece, right? So if you have two people going in and one has formal authority over the other, and there's a lack of self-awareness either on the leader's part or on the receiving part of that communication, then everything breaks down and it becomes more of a personal character attack than it is about a constructive way to move forward.
Oh, wow. So what within your model are you proposing kind of separates the person's, like, I guess, sense of self and their character versus just like who they are as an employee, their role?
Yes, that's a great question. So we happen to use a tool. We use many different tools, but the one that we use in our communication structure is called Strengths Finders. And it's an assessment. It's a self-assessment. So it's you telling yourself about you. And we create a common language with the group through that tool, which then allows the conversation to exist, let's say, on the table and not in your lap. And when it's happening out in front of you, it's a choice to enlist and move through rather than have something be forced on you that you feel more of a victim mentality to.
Oh, I love that.
I wonder if in the American context, for American companies in particular, is it difficult for people to separate their own self from their corporate self? When you are walking around in America, as a citizen, you're walking down the street with a hot dog in your hand, you're equal to everybody around you. But when you come into a corporation, no, you are a subordinate to a plethora of people. Your immediate boss, your boss's boss, his boss, everyone above you in that pyramid that is the corporate ladder. To separate yourself and be a subordinate, I feel like there could be some communication issues just from thinking that, no, I should be equal and I should have a say right now.
Yeah, so that's the leader's job, is to create safety, and I mean that all the way from the top and every layer down and around in the organization to create safety in the space. Because one of the dilemmas is that if you have too much authority and you don't create the art of influence, then you're jamming something down someone's throat until they decide not to do what you're asking them to do anymore. Where if you go in with more grace and a good communication structure, you're able to create a safe place for those people to show up and bring all of their greatness and their superpowers with them. And then as a leader, you can deploy those superpowers and influences in your organization in a construct that is results oriented and it actually becomes very quickly a competitive advantage.
So what's been your experience when you do go into companies in Trybal Performance? Your company goes into companies to fix their communication issues. Like, what is a common underlying theme there? Like, is the communication completely broken down? Are they really trying to sharpen up the edges? And what do you do to fix things?
So first we start with the self-awareness piece, right? With a tool that allows you to begin to understand who you are inside a construct that other people are doing the same thing. So it creates that safety, again, outside of personal character in front of a group of people, and that everybody can engage and disengage with it where they're safe to, because everybody's going to come in at a different place in that spiral, let's say. And so when they're able to engage and disengage, they create their own safety and their own growth up there through that spiral. The cool part for a leader is that when you enlist someone from a position of strength, the ability to hold them accountable to that strength is much cleaner. And performance is easier to kind of engage with and say, hey, Lexy, we talked last week about your ability to drive revenue up, and we talked about it through your strengths of command and strategic. And one of the things that we're finding is we're not meeting our goals. Can you help me understand what's in the way that I can help you with, or where you can step it up from a strengths perspective? It's much safer for me to engage in that conversation and be really focused on making a shift or results rather than feeling attacked in a personal way, and I'll be more likely to enlist.
That makes sense.
I wonder if the issue is it mainly from the executives or the managers that have this communication problem, or is it amongst the employees as well? Is it like a top-down problem, or is it like overall everyone having a communication issue?
I think it is more holistic as in everybody. That said, I will say that the leader, because you chose a leadership role, if you show up and get paid to be a leader, then you've chosen that as part of the core part of the competencies that you're going to be measured against. And so your biggest job is to enlist and evoke people to show up towards the common goals of the organization. And so therefore, the communication onus sits with you, although it isn't only with you. I would say the leader bears more responsibility for creating the space for someone to be able to enlist.
That makes perfect sense. Because that sounds like the way they treat quarterbacks in the NFL is like the team may be bad. The wide receivers may not be communicating very well. The offensive line may not be blocking. But at the end of the day, they'll say that Eli Manning is a horrible quarterback. Like Ben Roethlisberger is the worst, and Michael Vick he just can't throw very well. Well, Michael Vick never had an offensive line.
But the leader needs to take the brunt of the responsibility.
100%. Yeah. So it sounds like the onus will fall on the managers. But I don't know, if your organization doesn't have good communication, then I would imagine it's going to crumble fairly quickly. To give you another example, my mother works for a government organization. I don't think I should say it. So she works for a government organization, and there is notoriously bad communication via email. Most of the communication is via email, and they're sending it, and some people don't have very much tact via email. So is that something that you've also noticed, is that when people are sending emails that maybe this guy writes in all caps, and maybe this person is extremely short, and this person is very hostile when it comes to communicating with others?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty human to fill in the gaps where there's no facts. So the experience might be very different for me than it would be for you, and we could be in the same communication string, and I could say, she just wants to get it done quickly, and you could say, I think she's being a jerk. And so inside that space is where all of the mischief, you might say, kind of starts to evoke. Yeah. And it is true that via text or written communication, things can get construed pretty quickly. So the old-fashioned and yet out-of-touch way that it seems is that we should just pick up the phone or walk over to the desk if we're in the physical space, to have more of those courageous conversations, to make sure that the playing field is understood, and then the written form of communication is more likely not to be misrepresented.
That makes perfect sense. There's a comedian, Key and Peele, and they have this thing where they're shooting text messages back and forth, and one of them is like, it's nothing. He's just saying, "Hey, how's your day?" But the other one is misconstruing the message to think it's extremely hostile. And I can see how, like, you could mean something one way, but the way it comes across on the other end is completely different. Benign. Yeah. So we had this idea of the communication bureau, like we were talking about before, where like you'd have essentially a team of people monitoring all of the communication so that they could essentially like blow the whistle whenever like someone made a communication faux pas. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, like for Trybal Performance, like as far as your projects on fixing people's communication, like how, like what is your biggest and your most proud like project thus far?
Probably, we've chosen to work pretty targetedly in the healthcare and education space, and the reason we chose to do that was because we feel like both of those places have really severe consequences, be them lovely or less than lovely, in our communities that we live in. So whether we're helping teachers be more effective and educators, or we're helping physicians and administrators and nursing be more effective, the multiplier, which we'll never see, is we know it's there. And I would say that in both of those spaces, we're most proud as an organization to be making measurable impact in the ability for those organizations to live in a strengths-based or plus valued abundance mentality inside of what we call and have trademarked the strengths-based ecosystem. So they're deploying people's superpowers while holding accountability and also seeing amazing results as a byproduct of that.
I like the superpowers. I've heard you mention that a couple of times, like empowering people to deploy their superpowers. People do need to understand.
We all have them.
Exactly. Yeah. People need to understand that we've all got something to bring to the table. And I think a byproduct of people recognizing that is some confidence there to not feel so shaken when somebody else is deploying their superpowers. As, different personalities, I feel like they're more willing and excited to show what they're worth and what they're made of, while other people are a little bit more hesitant or introverted. Like, I mean, I know me personally, I'm shy and introverted. And while I try to remember that I've got a lot to bring to the table, sometimes I feel a little overpowered in the big, like in the corporate settings. I've noticed that I've felt that way, and it can be a little intimidating and daunting. So you've got a journal coming out called Trybal Gratitude.
Yeah.
Is this the new project?
Yeah. So in my executive coaching practice, gratitude's always been a thread that's woven throughout the process of coaching an executive. And I couldn't find a tool that was going to help drive some more rapid self-awareness in the space of gratitude. And so I created one. And so it's in pre-sale right now. It should ship right about Thanksgiving time. And we're pretty excited about it. It's getting a lot of really good traction. So I know it's a good time and space for it.
Nice.
The whole concept is that when we can have a really robust gratitude practice, that we actually can build resilience. And through the resilience, we can manage change. And the whole world that we live in, specifically for leaders, that's the whole shell game they're in. And so if we can increase the ability to move into managing change in our personal life and our work life, helping others that have influence over manage that change, then we are starting to see really cool results with that thread.
Oh, it sounds great.
You had a blog post where you mentioned the abundance mindset. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so the abundance mindset is a place, and I think it probably in the past 10 to 15 years has started to get some resonance in America, at least, because it's the positive psychology movement, and it says that there's enough. Now, the dilemma with that is we have really good examples of not enough food, not enough safety, not enough of things, right? Mm-hmm. In our communities in a really tactile sense. The abundance mindset comes from a deeper place from within, while not ignoring that our human reality might be that some of us don't have enough of some of the essentials. The abundance mindset would say that those of us that do have enough, be it spiritual awareness, be it the ability to teach people to communicate, that you're actually able to recognize them and deploy them into the ether of our universe and create the abundance for others where it's lacking, and then they would do the same for you. That's the whole you've got my back, I've got yours kind of methodology.
So that makes complete sense. Like a lot of people are struggling for their most basic of needs, but like in a society like ours, where like most of our needs are fully covered. I mean, if you take a half step back and just look around at what you have, like the idea that in history people were hot indoors. You have air conditioning in every single building you walk into. Like at any time, if you're thirsty, like grab a cup and you can walk into any store and get water for free. Not only that, but you're in your house, you have multiple taps of water. Like it's just tiny things. Not to mention that like a lot of us have televisions in several of our rooms. Like a lot of us have the amenities that people would have like fought and like died for, like for people to have. So that it is abundant. And if you were able to create that in a workforce where it's like, hey guys, like really look around. We may work at CVS. Like this may not be your dream job, your dream career or anything, but like honestly, you work 8 hours a day, then you go home and you get to watch a football game. Like you're off 2 days a week. Like this isn't the world's most difficult job. Like your relationships are okay, and maybe you aren't on Maslow's the top of Maslow's pyramid of needs, but I mean, you're not fully fulfilled, but it's pretty good. It's not as bad. And if you can facilitate that as a manager, it seems like you could take one huge step forward for a better work environment, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and doing that, you actually, some people will often say to me, well, aren't we breeding in that space of mediocrity and acceptance of the okay rather than going from good to great? And the answer actually is that life has cycles. And so sometimes you're going to be chasing good to great, and other times good is great. And so having the internal fortitude and understanding about your values and your own personal mission statement allows you to calibrate what those cycles are, and for you to actually not only experience abundance for yourself, however you define it, right? You're going to do it differently than I do, and not make someone else wrong for it, and then spread your abundance and share it. So there's like this ripple effect, or the vibration increases across humanity as a result of that sharing.
I was thinking in like the smaller scale, having this abundance mindset throughout the entire like office or company or organization, it can foster some cohesion within the individuals themselves as a team, right?
Yeah, it does. And a really cool thing will happen as a result is that it's not Pollyanna. It's not like everything's always awesome. Sure. It just says that we're going to come at it from a position of what's working and what's right. Mm. And when we see the gaps where that's not true, because they're going to exist, we're also going to take our strengths or our strategies and we're going to create bridges to move what isn't right into a space where it's working. And we don't have to play victim, or we don't have to be down about that. We can actually deploy to it from a place of abundance and kind-heartedness, rather than, scarcity and depression.
So is that going to be how the gratitude journal, like the overall tone of the gratitude journal is, that like teaching you to be grateful for the things that you do have, and showing like what like gratitude in your general life can affect in the rest of your life? Yeah, well, yeah, gratitude there's a lot of good science out there that you can Google it and you'll see all kinds of nice science articles that show the benefit for psychological health, emotional well-being, which, hey, that's awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And what's hard to find is like, okay, so yeah, we know gratitude's good and I can count my 3 blessings, but that's a great start, and it's really not the crux of a gratitude journal. So in the journal itself, you'll see a space where at the end of your day, when you're winding down your day after you've set your intention and you're kind of cataloging how your day went, did it go as I'd hoped it would, what was better, what wasn't as good, whatever that might be for you, there's a place for you to give yourself a high five. And the interesting feedback that I get there is that that's the hardest part of the journal, because oftentimes we and our organizations don't stop to celebrate. And it doesn't mean, order cake for everybody to eat. It means just say, hey, Lexy, you did a great job on this, or to say it and or receive that gift of gratitude and appreciation inside yourself.
And that celebration goes a long ways, because then you're not that negative, that inner commentator that you have that's breeding the I'm less than, I'm not worthy, whatever your rant is, actually settles down, and you can have access to new parts of who you are unconsciously in the design of who you want to be.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, because I've heard of a lot of it's almost like anti-American to say, you know what, you should be happy with what you have now. Like that's not how we operate. That's not how we operate. No, you're hard. Not only are you horrible, but your life is horrible, and the only way you can get better is to work harder. Like you hear it multiple. Like if you type in motivational speaker and pick one at random, what you're gonna hear is, listen, you suck. You're lazy. You need to do more. Like why would you be grateful for what you have right now? You clearly you're gonna be a loser forever. Like that's the tenor of like every one of them. So like this idea that you should be grateful for what you have is like a huge like step forward, I imagine, in people's like just natural psychology and going back or going through day to day.
Have you found that to like once somebody's able to pull that into themselves, have you found that to improve motivation and performance?
Yeah, actually, good question. So gratitude is a manifesting tool. So it's said to be the one virtue that gives you access to all the other virtues as you design the you that you want to experience.
Wow.
So when you can get really good at your gratitude practice, and I'm a living example, so I've been doing this for almost 14 years now, and in the past 5 to 7 years, the manifestation of the experiences of the people and the things that I've wanted to experience in this round of being human are coming about more quickly with more grace. I'm finding flow. I don't fight it anymore. My life in general is just much more peaceful. And the people that I evoke into it are of that same vibration. So life is great as a result of it.
Wow, that's awesome.
It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that everything goes perfect. I'm not saying that, but generally life's really much easier.
It's like it's just the tone on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense. So this gratitude journal, I'm looking forward to it. I need some material that says, "Hey, you don't suck so bad." Like, be great.
Yeah, and the cool part is that you're the commentator for this journal, right? So the journal's just the vessel for which you're going to write your story. So you're going to be the one telling you don't suck so bad, and you're going to be the one catching the magical moments that are happening in your life, and you're going to be the one orchestrating what your value set's going to be and honoring the pattern that shows up. So you're going to be that one person for you, which is pretty powerful.
I gotta read this thing. All right, so when does it drop? When does it come out? Because I need to get a copy.
Yeah, so you can order it now. You just go to Alexsys Thompson, Alexsys Thompson.com, and it's in pre-sale. But they should be here next week. And I'm actually hosting at my home a gratitude journal shipping party, and they'll all hit the mail.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. All right, you have to say it again because I have a pencil. And,
the website?
ALEX.
ALEX, S is in Sam, Y is in Yo-Yo, S is in Sam, Thompson, THOMPSON.com.
And .com. AlexsysThompson.com. Okay, cool. And if you make a mistake in the title and you can't get to it, type in Alexsys Thompson and it'll come up. It'll come up, and then you can get the gratitude journal. All right, perfect. All right, good deal. I can't wait to get this thing. All right, well, thank you for sitting with us. This is the Polypsych podcast. This is your host, Anthony Lindsay.
And Stephanie Moreno.
Later. That was awesome. I really like that one.
Yeah.
So
she's on Forbes magazine. She's been doing this for a while now, 14 years. It shows. Like she seems to be really knowledgeable in this communication in the workplace. You know what? It's not just in the workplace. Like this stuff, the tips and pointers and stuff, and the principles and concepts. It seems like they would apply across different relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. You just gotta like hone it in and target it for what you're looking for.
100%.
But communication is one of the things that is a stickler in like various aspects of our lives. You figure out how to communicate not only with others but with yourself. I think is a biggie. Like you got to be able to like not
actualize.
Yeah, there's that, but definitely like reflect. So you got to reflect and bring yourself up. Like put yourself in perspective, put your own image in perspective. Where do you really stand with your job or your family or your own personal goals? Like all just for yourself.
And have that internal monologue that isn't mean.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to be mean to yourself as a way to motivate. It's like you said, all these motivational videos are basically telling you you're not doing enough. Mm-hmm. That's really hard at the end of the day when you're like, I'm exhausted. I just want to take a nap. Like, if I sleep for that extra hour, I must be a lazy sloth.
Yeah, this is why you're not successful, by the way.
Because I needed 6 hours of sleep. Yeah. Like, yes. Well, yeah, because the other guy is making millions of dollars and he gets 3 hours of sleep.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you have like a guy like Mike Tyson, and he's like, yeah, I like to go and run. Really late at night. I like to get up at 3 a.m. and start my running because I know that my opponent is sleeping. I know that he's sleeping. That's how I get ahead. Like it makes sense that like you need to push through all of it. You should never be happy with what you have now.
That guy's not well. He's not psychologically well.
Someone say to be a champion you can't be psychologically well, but I do.
Then are you really a champion?
You're not. You're certainly not psychologically healthy, but you are a champion. So I do like the idea of being grateful for what you do have while you're still pushing forward, which I think is the point of Trybal Performance in general, is that like you should for sure still be pushing. You should still be striving. Oh, yeah. But at the same time, you shouldn't be like, I'm not already the CFO, so I'm nothing.
Well, that's certainly not going to push you forward.
Definitely.
Like when you bog yourself down and you tell yourself that what you're doing is wrong, yada yada, with nothing else pulling you forward, you've got all of you're basically holding yourself back. So there's the going back to the motivational videos, there's half of it that'll say, stop telling yourself you can't do this, stop telling yourself you can't do that. Like if they were to stop there and they weren't to go on and be like, so do all the things today. Like, if they kept that part out and just said, stop telling yourself that you can't do or that you haven't done, therefore you're bad. Mm-hmm. Cut all that out because it's not productive. It's not helping you. It's not serving you. It serves no purpose.
100%. So it's not just the communication between people in the workforce. It's communication between everyone, everywhere, including yourself, the internal monologue you have. I don't think that you would accept that monologue coming from anyone else. If someone else, like you were laying down and someone came over to you and said, you're a piece of garbage. You're never going to be successful. Yeah. Look at you, napping.
I think, unfortunately, I think the more that you engage in the negative self-monologue, the more you are susceptible to accepting crap from other people.
That's interesting.
So it's like if you're already in the gutter, like what's another piece of trash on top of you?
Huh.
But if you are holding your head high, you're not going to let someone so much as like cough your way without saying, hey, excuse you. Like you expect more. I'm not saying become like an arrogant a-hole. Yeah. I'm just saying like allow yourself to become greater, to do better by getting out of your own way. And just don't say that. Don't make it easier for the people who are already going to be mean to you.
That's all right. So go to
this journal. Give me this
journal. I can't wait. It's dropping soon. You just have to go to Alexsys Thompson .com. Yeah, AlexsysThompson.com. Alexsys is a difficult one to spell. ALEXSYS.
Yeah, it's like Alex and then the beginning of system.
Or cisgender.
Nope. So you messed it up again because that's CIS.
Shoot. I don't know anything. All right, AlexsysThompson.com. And then that's how you can get the gratitude journal. I think it's going to be dope. All right, go to polypsych.org where you can see all of the podcasts. Subscribe on iTunes. And I think those are the only two things. Go to polypsych.org, check out all the podcasts, and then subscribe on iTunes.
Bye.
Bye.